have 4 assisted living devices available for anyone who's hard of hearing. They're up front. If you could just come forward and in accordance with Resolution 2, you are informed that Scott Stilson of Vincent Drive is recording tonight's meeting for posting on YouTube. This meeting is also available and being recorded electronically on Microsoft Teams. In accordance with the Board of Supervisors Resolution 20-2023, the rules of conduct for public meeting and public comment period shall be observed and are listed at the bottom of the agenda. Following the agenda, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Sarah Sharp, who's going to give us the meeting overview, and then we'll see if there's any public comment. Thank you.
All right. I'm back. So thanks to Beth for covering the one meeting while I was gone. I'm still getting fully up to speed, but we'll kind of work out the transition. But this is me officially back, starting over with this project. This meeting, we will be focusing on our next key theme, which is guiding growth, which includes land use, future land use. The Borough Urban Revitalization Plan is in there, community services, kind of all of those elements of the plan will fall under that umbrella. So we'll dive into that. Later on in the meeting, we'll also just revisit the natural resource recommendations. I did include the historic resource recommendations in here in case anybody had any comments on those. I'm going to try something out. This is kind of using you guys as guinea pigs a little bit, but I have a virtual interactive tool to kind of help guide some of the discussion, to revisit some of the recommendations. Hopefully it'll be a quick way to gauge your thoughts, and we can test it out, see if it works. If it doesn't, we can kind of table it and move on. But I wanted to try to figure out how to get into the weeds without it being grueling and really time consuming. So that's what the QR code on your agenda, if you picked one up in the front. I will ask, just so things don't get skewed, that just the task force use the QR code to engage with this, and then any members of the public, if you fill out the survey, you can make your input known that way or through the public comment periods. But yeah, so we're going to try that out, and then hopefully we'll be able to wrap up the meeting. So that's really the main gist of the meeting. So we can turn it over to public comment. I will say we will discuss, it's not on the agenda, but in that last section, I know I've heard people asking about the survey, whether it'll be extended. So we can talk about the survey at that section. So I guess we can launch into public comment. If there's any.
Public comment?
Lorraine Louie, Vincent Drive. For public comment about the survey. So I saw the survey was extended. It doesn't have an end date. But one of the comments that has been coming back is that when people try by the QR code, they're having a hard time submitting it. And then after it takes, a couple of minutes to go through the survey, they get frustrated and it just ends. Is there some way that like if a survey was started by the QR code, or do you only know once it's submitted?
We only know once it's submitted. We don't know if they're open surveys, right?
Yeah, we only know if, they're fully completed.
Okay, so there's been problems with the QR code, and I think it has to do with the ranking. Like, if some of the questions are supposed to rank by.
Yeah, if they don't fully rank them
it doesn't go
And-
through.
Yes, it
Okay.
doesn't go through.
So I don't know if those instructions were clear enough, because we lost out on a couple of surveys.
Okay,
So then we had to tell people to do it the paper way.
okay.
So yeah, if you can put that out there for the people that still want to fill out a survey. And then the other thing, I highlighted something on the agenda packet, and we're going to be talking about this later. But it was on page 8 of 21. And it's the section where you say that the township's going to evaluate opportunities for the township to purchase and retire TDRs. Because I guess that's still questionable in my mind if the township is actually buying TDRs at this point. So if we can, as you go through it, if we can talk about that.
Yeah, and that'll be a discussion point, just the TDR program in general, and if it's still serving the township, and kind of what to do going forward, so thank you, yep.
Thank you.
I have a question. Where are people getting the survey thing? I didn't get one mailed to me, or, or a card. I thought we were going to be putting out a card for people.
Yeah, so the postcard hasn't gone out yet, but it will be sent out probably within a week or so. So then we can discuss, when we get to it on the agenda, how long to keep it open for, so that people have a chance, once the mailing goes out, to respond.
Okay. And when and where can people pick a paper copy of that survey?
The paper copies will be available at the borough and at the township building. And so there will be on the postcard, for those who need a paper copy, to pick it up at the two,
Okay,
buildings.
because I've spoken to a lot of Amish neighbors that
Yeah,
will not, do one online.
right,
And they'll need to have access to be able to pick it up. So
Right.
they'll, and the borough's only open a couple of days a week, between certain hours, so that'll kind of cut anything down for getting one there. I don't know what the hours are here, but.
and we can always see if the township would be able to have a couple. Some of I think the paper copies of the borough versus the township are slightly different, so we can make sure that there are, copies of both at each
Okay,
building, just,
okay.
so people have the opportunity to pick up either.
I would have suggested putting one at the hardware store for the Amish.
How about the library?
Well, and the library, but I'll bet they visit the hardware store more often. And it would make it even an easier, access.
Make an announcement at our borough meeting too, once we get them.
Okay.
Anyone else on this side?
Marion Perez, 827 Chestnut Tree Road. I believe I spoke with a Miss Sharp.
Yeah,
Is that you? Okay. So I had the same concerns about the survey. And the one thing I was going to ask is, now I just downloaded all your agendas and meetings and all that and was going crazy looking through all that. But it said that you would deliver newsletters in one of your meetings. Wouldn't that be a solution for the Amish? Maybe deliver one to a bishop who can then, or deliver some to the bishop who can then give it to all his little Amish friends? Something like that, if they didn't, if they couldn't come here to pick it up. Because it did say something in one of your meetings that you were thinking about delivering surveys.
Yeah,
I'll have to look back, but anyway, I was glad to talk with you because are they going to extend the deadline now, and how long?
Yeah, we'll have to extend the deadline, and we'll have to discuss that when we get to it on the agenda.
Okay, and then I saw there was a public meeting supposedly on 9/10, I believe, an opening community visioning center session. How did that go, and how many people came to that? Because I was unaware of that.
I can answer that one.
Okay.
So we placed it right before the Board of Supervisors meeting, so that we
Right.
could have more attendance. And we did advertise through the township borough and website.
Just the website stuff.
Yeah, and social media, and tried to get it out as best we could. And we had about 15 people who attended, which isn't the best
No.
turnout and is not atypical for meetings like this.
Now, I did see on the survey you are asking if they want a newsletter. I think I would advise doing that in the future, because when I first moved here, we used to get like, I think it was 2, like one in the fall and spring, you know. And even the borough, I think, did it. They may still do a newsletter. But it was nice.
Yeah,
It was nice to get it because you knew what was going on, and it kind of, when you're a busy mom, which I was back then, I didn't have a lot of time to get involved in the township, but maybe people should, and we need more people to tell people about that. But just maybe that would be another thing to do in the newsletter, getting that out. And I liked your idea, I've mentioned that before, about just putting up some newsletters that, even if it's in BBs, you know, if you live in the township, if you live in the borough, this is what's going on.
Right.
And then the other thing I saw is who decided, or who referred Struble Lake as something to be turned into a park with horseshoes and volleyball courts and things like that? Where does that come from? Park and Recreation?
It was likely a recommendation from the previous comp plan that just got pulled forward into these current recommendations and draft
Okay.
language, and for something for the task force.
Because I, for one, as a resident who lives by Struble Lake, do not want that. I would think that would be better as a passive recreation. If they are deciding to do the trail connect between Downingtown and such, maybe put park benches along the trail or a workout thing, you know, just for that. But barbecues and renting out boats, I don't think the fishermen are gonna like that too much. If it starts getting crowded, people there with canoes and kayaks and barbecuing, I wouldn't go there anymore. I like to walk there. I like to sit there and watch the birds. Are they gonna get rid of all the, you know, open land that's there for the, you know, wildlife and such? So that's just a concern of mine and something I'll be looking into and hopefully stopping. And then, do we own the lake, but the state owns the land?
I think the state owns.
owns
Yeah,
What is it,
totally
yeah?
state
Lake
owned.
and the land around
Yeah.
it.
So the state owns the lake and the land, or just the land?
All of it.
All of it.
All of it. So how would we get permission to put stuff like that in there?
It would just be in coordination with the state. So if,
And the
Any-
Game and Commission Board?
yeah, anything that would be proposed as enhancements to Struble Lake would have to be done in
Well, I
coordination
don't
with
think you
them.
can enhance it any more than it is.
Well,
It's a beautiful
and these
place.
were recommendations from the last comprehensive plan.
And that's
so
the other thing, the other
it's-
comprehensive plan, where do we see, like, what has
We're kind of like
happened?
running up against the 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll come back at the end then
You
if you
can.
like. All right.
Thank you.
I do think it's important to note the last comprehensive plan, I know I didn't, Dawn didn't, Greg didn't, did anybody here at any parts of the last comprehensive plan? Come on, okay. Yeah, so, well, that's why we're here, if we make a whole new plan.
Well, I understand that. I just want to know what's happened since the last plan and where do you find that out? Like, what was implemented and what was done?
If you look through everything, and this really isn't back and forth, but
Yeah.
in the very first meeting, they went through the chart of what was set up at the last meeting, the last
That
comp.
big packet I got.
And then, I think the township and the borough folks completed what was done.
We did.
That was in one of the early meetings, and that should be in.
The July meeting? Or one of the
I think it was
other?
I think it was, the follow-up was in the August meeting. It was
Yeah.
the second meeting. The first meeting it was presented, the second meeting was when they came back with what was complete.
All right. I'll look through it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone over here? Are we finished over here? Anybody over here? Okay, all right, Sarah.
Awesome.
So I had just,
Yeah,
one of the comments I had was what you're gonna talk about on the surveys and updates as far as that goes in the mailing, et cetera. Then the other comment I had is being new to this plan and knowing from the, and reading and going over the last plan, also understanding our contract and the grant guidelines, et cetera. So kind of having, putting all that together, I want to make a comment that part of the problem I see from the previous plan, and like was made a comment from the audience, we put this massive thing together, and no one, it like gets intimidating, so no one really wants to tackle it, or has the resources or the time, or wants to add money to the staffing, whether it be the borough or the township, to put like a project manager to handle this. So as we move through this thing, if possible, with the agreement of all parties, can we funnel down some of the goals to maybe very specific, like, and either put yearly timelines on them, maybe a handful a year, something manageable, something, because I hate to see putting all the time, energy, resources into something, and it sits on the shelf like the last one did, just because when you start going through it, it's so massive.
Yeah.
So that's just my comment on that, if we can kind of keep that on course of some more, specifics.
Yeah, so that is a perfect, so, just to address your original, point, the hope is to pare down the recommendations so that they are actually achievable. Now, there is some value to including more of the pie in the sky wish list items, but you don't want them all mixed in with things that are actually achievable, because then you end up with this huge laundry list of items that is so overwhelming, it's hard to kind of break it down and work through it. So what we're hoping, and which is why we're revisiting these recommendations, is to be able to pare down and prioritize your top things that you want to accomplish, or you think you definitely can accomplish in the next 10 years. And then at the very end of the process, we'll compile all of the recommendations for all of the different chapters, sections, into one, what we call the implementation matrix. And we can organize that however you like. I think the old plan was probably by chapter, but we can organize them by short-term items, medium-term items, long-term. We can organize them by achievable and more wish list items. Whatever we can discuss as a task force, what would be the most effective way to organize those recommendations. In other townships, we've suggested organizing them by the key stakeholder that would be pursuing that. Like, they're all planning commission recommendations, then they live on a planning commission recommendation list, and then that group can kind of work through. So whatever you think would be the best way to organize them so that they can actually be accomplished, and that you can actually keep track of what's accomplished, so that when we're doing this in another 10 years, you can easily say, hey, this is what we checked off the list, this is what we're still working towards, just to make that process a little bit more seamless. So we can keep chatting, keep thinking about maybe what would be the most effective way to lay that out in the plan. Because certainly I think the planning world has shifted a lot. Planning or comprehensive plans 20 years ago were like 300-page documents that you really had to sift through, and they just ended up stuck on a shelf. We're shifting towards more implementable plans, so really a short list of actionable items. I think your 2015 plan was somewhere in the middle of those two, as we're paring down those lists. So yes, that's what we're hoping for to get to that point.
The 2015 list was pretty thick.
Yes.
I get what Sal's saying, so, keep it down, zero it in.
Yeah.
I mean, even for the wish list items, you could help us get grants to service it, we'd gladly do it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a lot of those wish list items, or they're things that maybe 20 years down the road, there might be an opportunity to do it. But, you know, you don't want to get bogged down with all those items that you lose track of the things that you can actually accomplish. So if I can pivot then to, if you all have a smartphone or if you want to use a laptop, I can try to send a link out, but there's a QR code on your agenda that will take you to what is called the Mentimeter. So I will switch to this. So I do have the historic resources here. We'll see, it's only 2 slides, but we'll kind of quickly do a speed round of going through these and prioritizing these recommendations. I do apologize, there was a word or a character count limit, so for any of them, if you don't get the gist of the recommendation from what is on the screen, I did do my best to order these in categories so that you could follow along and reference them. But my request is that basically you drag the your top recommendation to the top things that are high priority. If there's anything that you don't think is a priority at all, you can just leave it at the bottom of that list. But that way we can try to get a gauge of what are your top priority recommendations and what might kind of fall off. Also let me know if you have any issues. This is where we're getting into guinea pig territory. So trying to change it up so we're not just looking at words on a piece of paper.
Well,
And as people submit, we should see the bar go. So I see 9 people in.
I feel like some of these don't apply to the borough.
I thought about separating out the borough ones, but I don't know.
Because all our storm outfalls are in the township,
Okay,
you know?
So I think you have to rank all of them though.
right.
So you can only rank the ones that are pertinent to the borough.
Really?
I don't think you have to pull
Yeah,
all
you
of
can
them.
Yeah, I
leave.
think you can leave that out.
Too late.
So if only two are important to you, that might be, I'm pretty sure, we tested this yesterday.
And you have to scroll all the way to the bottom to hit submit when you're done. I think this may be, the first section, natural resources, is the wordiest section. There's a lot.
That's how it's gonna
I don't know. I only noticed it when Okay, so we have our first response. And hopefully these bar graphs will
The rest of them leave it out, and then you can arrow them up.
Oh, okay.
So put stuff in the zone, the borough, it's not my number one. Just to help you guys out.
Yeah, some do not apply to us at all.
We got 2 out of 9.
Range.
I put that as like 7, because you don't always have to, don't you?
What's that?
Or what did it Smith for you?
Yeah, Jason said you will have to sit down. That's what I heard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, whatever you think.
Okay, I'll give it another minute maybe for this first
You
one.
can drag your in the arrow.
Oh, okay, now, okay. Now I got it in someplace, but, okay.
A few more seconds to get in. And we can discuss these afterwards, so this is not a final answer. It's just more to gauge where everything's at. Okay, so we have the results here, still live. Is there anything specific that jumps out that we should remove? We have protect hydric soils. Do we still want to keep that on? It looks like strengthen the significant tree requirements in the borough. Adding requirements to replace trees through development. The second one's a pretty general one, looking at all the regulatory ordinances. Does anybody have any thoughts specific? Oh, we jumped. Any thoughts?
On which one?
Any of them, the top ones, any of the ones that maybe we think we need to remove or deprioritize in some way?
Most of these items, or at least in the township, are already included in the requirements in the cell.
In the natural resource.
So,
Yeah.
when, like hydric soils, you gotta protect hydric soils.
Right.
As far as, you don't have it on here, but, your green stormwater infrastructure, I'm not sure that's something that's specifically in the ordinance, but, most of these items are in the cell.
Already addressed.
Yes, they're in the saldo, but the township has given out variances to get around them.
Okay.
So what's the point of even having them in the saldo if you're just gonna ignore them and do destructive construction?
So they might need to be still included as continuation or making sure they're enforced at the degree of the ordinance and.
Yeah, but if the planning commission, this has already happened, the
Yeah.
planning commission said no to some variances, board of supervisors said no, zoning hearing board says, sure, yeah, we're gonna cut
Okay.
down all these trees and destroy the soil.
Yeah. So it happens at the
That's what
zoning.
It could be an
ordinance.
educational, recommendation, for education, even, obviously there's been a lot of discussion with newsletters, like understanding why are these a key natural resource too, though, that should not be removed. Because I think it does start from the resident perspective. They're the ones that are coming in.
Yeah, but it wasn't the residents that gave out the variances.
Yes,
So
that's
you-
true, that's true. But they are asking for it. So if they understand why it's a key natural resource on their parcel, that they should not remove. Maybe it's a mix of the two.
And I wonder if there's something we can put in there to, I don't know, coordinate, work with the zoning hearing board in some way. We can look to see if there's any language we can include to make sure that your ordinances are being enforced. Because there's no point of having an ordinance if it's not being enforced.
Well, to Susan's point, when the planning commission doesn't support it and the
Right.
supervisors don't support it, they're an independent agency.
Right.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, we can see, because, yeah, there should be teeth to an ordinance, and it should just be able to be dismissed. We'll look into that, but that's very enlightening.
Well, probably ultimately where that needs to go is if we're experiencing that, then it's up to the supervisors to not reappoint the same
Zoning hearing
zoning
board.
people.
That's probably the only way to address
If
it.
they're not,
Following the, yeah,
the elected officials are the ones who are supposed to appoint people that are supposed to carry out what the people elected. So if there's a problem with that, then that's where I would say that instead of trying to redo ordinances and redo to make people do it, if you're not doing your job, then you shouldn't be doing your job.
okay. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So this is still, it should pop back up on your screen, so there's a next section. This is kind of more, there's still natural resource strategies, I just organized them in buckets for the purpose of this exercise. These are really natural resource strategies that involve education, outreach, stewardship. There's a few more borough specific ones in here.
You have to tax for it. Just FYI,
Right, so we don't know, put it on
I
here.
have a question for the
the
borough.
people didn't want it.
Right.
Fair?
What's that?
I have a question for the borough guys.
Yes, go ahead.
One of the items was to become a Tree City USA community, and I know this came up 10 years ago.
This came up actually less than 10 years ago too. I know it came up before and it came up when I was on the board.
I'm just curious why it's still under the consider category.
The borough council and some of the residents, I believe, shot it down because you do, because you have to tax for it, they charge a tax for it.
How much of a tax?
I do not remember this. This was a few years ago it came up.
What do feasibility studies cost? That's what you got. to
Tree City
tax for.
USA. Tree City USA, you had to charge a tax for it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So we've got two in. It looks like educational materials for natural resource stewardship and backyard habitat. Repairing buffer restoration, natural corridor connection, stewardship at the landowner scale. 3 in, I'll give a few more. So it looks like so far, tree inventory and Tree City USA, is that a non-starter at this point with the borough?
It hasn't come up in a couple of years, but last time it came up, it got shot down pretty quick, all because of the tax that it's charged with it.
So when it comes up, is that a resident looking to start it again, or does that come out from the borough?
It hasn't come up in years, but it was a resident or two that wanted to
Okay.
start it.
Um,
I don't think only that, too, it'd be the cost of, jackhammering up concrete if we, say we were to line Main Street. There would be quite a cost there.
Okay, so it would have to be in relation to getting grant funds to do projects for that.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well, I think we can go to the next slide. Does anybody have any thoughts on these? It looks like providing basically stewardship educational materials are the most important. I'm going to jump to the next slide, and this is a little bit shorter. This is really specific to more open space, natural corridors. There's only a few on here.
Sarah, what you put and sent to us and was in the handout, are we gonna talk about some of those items, or is this gonna take the place of that?
We can talk about the items that you want to remove. I was hoping this would start that discussion.
How many more of these do you have?
There are, and we can, if this is taking too long, if you don't think that this is worthwhile and you have specific items, we can just jump to those specific items.
Well, no, that's not really what I'm saying, it's just, I think probably some of us have comments on what you sent to us, and I don't have a problem with going through this, I was just kind of wondering how many more are left.
I have for open space and the recreation section, but if we had, sometimes when we come, people don't have specific comments, but I want to try to get, input from everyone, but I want to prioritize getting to the comments, so.
Well, I don't know how the rest of everyone feels, I don't necessarily have a problem with going through this, as long as we have time to maybe talk about some of the items that.
Can we go through what you have with this, because I think it's kind of a good idea, and then maybe just go through if anyone has specific comments,
On the.
instead of going through line by line on this stuff, just specific comments that anyone has.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It works for me.
So still go through this, but then if something pops up,
Or at the end, we just kind of go regather our
Yeah.
thoughts on what was given, handed out. Does that
Sure.
make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like double the time that we're,
right, well, yes, so I wasn't planning on going back through this.
okay. So
This,
continue on with this, and then we'll just highlight comments
yes,
that anyone has specific to the written. That makes sense?
yes. This is in lieu of going through the paper line by line. But as a comment comes up, we can address it if there's one that pops up on the screen, or at the end, we can address specific comments too, whichever makes sense.
Would you rather address it as we go, or just at the end, kind of go through all your comments?
I think I'd rather go through this and
Okay.
then go back through the comments,
Okay.
if that's okay with everyone else.
And we can try to get through this a little bit quicker. So I will just move on to the next unless anybody has any thoughts immediately, but we can circle back around. But this is just us collecting your input. So these are items that were more ongoing, that they're phrased as continue to do X, Y, or Z, so with the connotation that the borough and township are already doing these things. and if it's still important to reiterate continuing to do these things. Just a few more moments to lock in. I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, so this is on to the open space strategies. And these are the ongoing strategies. So again, the continuation of things that are already being done. And if it's important to continue to do that. A few more moments. I see a couple people have. I'm gonna switch to the next slide. So these are strategies not ongoing. That would need to be, adopt an official map, increase the education and outreach for land preservation. And this is one where the TDR comes up, reassessing that program and the effectiveness of that.
What if you don't rank one, what happens?
I think it just doesn't,
Doesn't
Like,
register?
yeah, the bar would not
Would that be the one I'm
increase.
going to ask the question is, what does consider aspects of equity, justice, diversity, and inclusion in open space acquisitions actually mean?
It would be like looking at, one, acquiring open space so that if it's parkland or open space, that it's not all in one section of the township, that it's kind of evenly distributed. If it's specifically acquiring a parkland, maybe you're looking at equipping it in a way that all people of able body can use it, having trails that are ADA compliant, those types of things. But making sure it's spread out. A lot of townships have all their open space in one area, and then like a lot of multi-use development and lower income development, and you don't have access to open space. Okay, I'm going to jump to the next one, just in the interest of time. We're on to the recreation section. I think there's only 2 more slides. This one, I think it's this one, maybe 3 more slides. Looks like we have about half. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the next slide. This is, the one was more planning regulations. This is a lot of coordinating with different entities, inside and outside of the borough, or borough and township on recreation. And this is where one of the recommendations to coordinate with Fish and Boat for expanded facilities at Struble Lake. Here's just a few more minutes, and then I think we have our last slide. So this is the last one, there's only 3 on here. And again, you don't have to prioritize, you can leave some out if it's not a priority. this was the last slide on that first section where there's a ton of recommendations and a ton. So that's natural resources, open space, and recreation. There's a lot of recommendations here. So we'll take this, obviously not everybody was here at this meeting, but we'll take this and at least look at those top priorities and try to in some way represent that in the recommendations, and then we can decide from there what maybe needs to be removed or, you know, ranked in some way so that we know the main priorities come into the plan. So I will skip the historic resource section because you said I wasn't here at that meeting, but you looked over that extensively. So then we can discuss any specific items that you wanted to address.
Can you send the QR to the folks that
Sure.
that couldn't make it this evening?
Yes, yeah, I'll follow up.
And then they can get a more
Yeah.
complete response. You ready?
Yep, go for it.
Someone want to go first?
No, I have a comment about the strategies. You have here implement and enforce riparian buffer standards, maintaining at least 100-foot forested buffer. Our ordinance, I think it's 75.
It's like I think your ordinance is like a two-tiered.
Zone 1,
It
Zone
is
2.
zone 1 and zone 2.
So was it 25 and 75? Is it something?
25, 50, or 50.
Okay, so it's a total of
It
75.
it was always, the maximum is 75, it can be a
75, okay.
combination. And we had quite the discussion when we did this before with Mr. Thylacker. We kept,
Going back.
there was a lot of discussion why, and I think our engineers even weighed in on that 75, it was 50, and it got expanded to 75.
And I think, so, I think that was one, I have one in red, so we can update it here. Continue to implement. I have one in red that's related to the riparian buffer ordinance that I changed slightly to say, because you already have pretty strong riparian buffer ordinances, the only thing that I have to enhance the riparian buffer standards, I didn't see any requirements to, some ordinances require restoration of a riparian buffer through a development process, in addition to maintaining that buffer. So that was, I removed like the first part of that recommendation, so that it was just looking at requiring reforestation.
So that's, where's that on what you sent to us?
Let me pull up the previous. So that was, let me see, the second.
The red it's on something.
Oh, this is
And the
the,
100
what
foot.
they sent, or what I sent them last week. This was since then. Implement and enforce riparian buffer standards, maintaining at least 100-foot buffer and requiring reforestation. I just took off these, it just jumped.
Is what you're working on the same as what we received?
That was the only change, and then I rearranged it just for the sake of,
Because I saw numbers on there, and I don't see bullet points on ours. What
uh,
you were working on before,
Page 2 of your packet, it's on the back side of the first page. There's numbers.
yeah, what I gave you is just slightly, it just reorganized, them, but the red was the only
I see.
item that I
So-
changed.
okay, so what we received tonight was not what was sent to us. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just rearranged them so that when we did the implementation, we were comparing like strategies to like strategies. So all the ordinance-related ones were on the same page. And then I just reorganized this so people could follow along.
So did you take out the 100-foot forested back?
The only one that I changed was the one in red. So there is one later where it says continue, that still has the 100-foot buffer.
I mean, I'm not interested in 100-foot, I think 75 is enough.
And then the other strategy that was originally there says implement and enhance the 100-foot buffer. So it would be saying to implement a 100-foot buffer. I removed that and the only thing that's remaining of that strategy is to enhance the buffer standards to require reforestation.
And your intent with that is if it's disturbed, that it would be reforested, or if there's a certain, I mean, how do you go in and require, and enhanced, I guess is the word, that if it needs it, it gets it, then that comes back to either the planning or the supervisors to say, no, it's okay, you don't need it.
Who determines whether it's?
Yeah, so do they hire an expert to say it doesn't need it, or that's what gets us in a little bit of a bind, because it's, if there's not a professional that's saying this is what you need, how do we as non-professionals say you need it or you don't need it?
So this particularly could be tied to one of the maps in the comp plan is a riparian buffer gap. So it identifies where there are what would be considered a riparian buffer. So 75 feet from the stream center line that does not have trees. So that would be what you would want to reforest. Where there aren't trees, where there isn't vegetation. If a development came on that property, you could require them to establish a planted buffer wherever there aren't existing buffers, vegetated buffers.
So should the wording change?
To have require reforestation in.
If it doesn't exist, or do you think enhanced covers that? Yes, it does.
Well, but I'm still looking down here where it's supposed to be 100-foot.
Yeah, I have the, on the next ongoing strategies, that section, we can change that to 75-foot wide riparian buffer. But I removed the language about the 100-foot from the one that's really getting at reforestation. But we can look through the others for the 100-foot to make sure it's consistent. And we can look at language to make that clearer. Reforest in areas where there isn't existing vegetation.
Are you saying that this is, you're gonna require it for land development, or?
Yeah, it would be required in land development. If there's a property that's being developed that has sections of stream that aren't vegetated. But this wouldn't require it, it would only be required through the land development process, not if you had a property that doesn't have, but you're not going through the land development process. Does that make sense? Are there any other comments?
So to address climate change and your green stormwater infrastructure, again, that's kind of vague in that there's no real examples of how to do it. Although I believe the new DEP regs with the new stormwater pretty much has green infrastructure included in the requirements. But to use the word green stormwater infrastructure, to me, that needs to be more defined, so,
Okay.
so the planners know what they're dealing with.
Is that for the regional feasibility study? Anywhere we say green stormwater infrastructure?
I think it should be anywhere.
Okay.
Where it says it, or climate change as well.
I mean, green stormwater's in there, you have that green stormwater infrastructure in a lot of locations.
Nothing should be related to climate change.
So he's saying take it out and leave the green water infrastructure.
I was just gonna say,
You need to get rid of
why
it,
have
take out
climate?
the- you know, nothing should be related to climate change.
I think that is we had that to address the change in storm intensity, but we can spell that out. The storm, there's a lot more volume that's coming out of storms that we've seen lately.
Well, if they'd stop spraying our skies, maybe that would change.
I mean, if that's the intent behind it, then I would spell that out.
Yeah.
Just because that kind of just, to me, just leaves an open
Mhm.
Especially
interpretation of what,
when somebody comes in and says, oh, okay, we're implementing a whole new climate change strategy.
There's nothing wrong with the green stormwater infrastructure. That's a good thing. Quantifying it, I think, really helps to enhance what the expectation is from somebody that's doing, whether they're doing a development or whether they're doing 3 chicken houses or, you know, anything that has anything to do with impervious coverage. That's a good thing, but it's just too vague in my mind.
Okay.
And if you look up examples of it, it's pretty much what is required now. You know, if you look up green stormwater, it's rain gardens and it's not your typical stormwater basin.
I think the big question is, with moving into green stormwater, is DEP approving land development plans with more green stormwater than their traditional BMBs and all that?
Any other comments on the natural resource section? Well, any of it, actually.
I saw something about heritage tree.
That was,
That was on their strategy, near the bottom.
What is a heritage tree? Because we have no definitions for heritage tree.
there's, some ordinances identify heritage trees.
Yeah, but we don't have a,
Do you guys have the
Definition.
specimen tree or maybe William Penn tree definition? Or borough? I mean, like, if you're
I don't think I know.
considered.
No, I don't
Susan, I don't think we.
I imagine that they're original trees that were
Yeah. They're
native to
usually,
this
they're the
area.
trees that are of deemed like unique heritage or cultural significance in the area. They're not just your typical like street tree or your riparian,
Right, just like
you know,
ash.
canopy, whatever.
Yeah, some-
Yeah,
Yeah, they're dying out.
yeah, so you like, you
That's
will
right
see, okay, so it's not heritage tree. You might see like specimen vegetation too sometimes, because like some people want to identify shrubs as well, but, so there's no definition on that. I'm trying to think,
Not
yeah, it's
borough.
usually William Penn or heritage specimen, those are the only three. What page is that on?
Yeah, that that should kind of be defined with specifics.
Yeah, we can add a definition. And if you're establishing, I mean, that would be part of defining what would identify a heritage tree. Typically, it's kind of one of scenic value. Some townships, they think, oh, that sycamore is like a characteristic tree of our township. We picnic there, we do X, Y, or Z, or it's been there for 300 years. So kind of like a historic resource, but a tree instead. Something that's very specific to the landscape.
They do often come with some stronger enforcements for removal and such, you know, often replanting requirements as well, if they are removed, so.
But if there's nothing that comes to mind in the borough or the township that would rise to that level.
Yeah, they need to be designated by registered arborist, township horticulturalist. So, you know, if that's not something that Borough Township kind of sees fit, then that maybe that's not like the best recommendation for the plan currently.
I don't think it was ranked highly when we did the ranking either, so we can always look to remove that if it's not worthwhile. Are there any other comments?
I kind of think it is worthwhile. Because
Okay.
we want to keep basically, you know, trees that were indigenous to this area here.
Right.
We don't want them being replaced with these, you know, like these
Different trees are
or
cutting, right?
whatever, you know, new trees that are like people are allergic to, and maybe they live longer, or they look, you know, they probably don't really look any better, but they might be stronger, you know, but nutrient wise for themselves, but they're not really indigenous trees. So I kind of think something like that should be included, because that's a kind of comprehensive plan thing that we would like to see, I think.
And even if there's not an ordinance that goes with it, it could still be a definition, obviously.
Right, and something to, you know, something to guide or to educate and to, you know, to look to.
Mhm. So we can just make that more specific and outline what a heritage tree might be.
Okay.
Any other comments? I want to make sure we have time for the rest of.
I think we do have, some of the things you're suggesting, I think, already do exist. Like
Okay.
redirecting development outside those areas of national corridors. I believe that's somewhere in our ordinance. We do have a riparian corridor map. The same thing with woodland classifications. I believe we do have that as well. We talked about the buffer. One of the things with the riparian buffer, you have that it should be put in at the time of permit or development approval. Typically, that timing probably isn't really good because of some pollution that might happen from improper stormwater controls. That it might be better if it would be done. It's protected by the escrow for development. I don't know how it works for farms, but so it's not like somebody can skate and not have to do it. But I think the timing of when it should be installed or planted needs to be looked at. Maybe that's where the professional that looks at it can say the ideal time to put it in. Because typically it's going to be at the low end of the property, and if somebody doesn't have the proper stormwater controls on, and you've reforested that riparian area, and it gets an inch of silt or something, I don't think up front is maybe where it should be installed. It definitely should be installed at some point.
Yeah, I mean, there might be some value in installing it ahead of time because the riparian buffer is kind of acting as a filtration to prevent all of that runoff going into the streams. Now, it won't be a fully established riparian buffer, but we certainly can put in language to say, make sure, you know, with expert guidance.
Well, I guess if it goes in the beginning, then there should be an evaluation period
To see how
at the
well
end
it,
to make sure
yeah,
that there isn't
That
damage
it's
to it, so.
a successful
that
planting.
when whatever the project is that's finished, that it's still intact.
That's a good suggestion. Anything else?
Well, under, are we in everything, like recreation?
Yep. Anything?
I'm not sure the first, under objectives, that first paragraph is for us.
The goal,
No, yeah, under goals, it would be the first objective.
establish sufficient.
It looks like that maybe
Oh,
touch base.
yeah. I think I corrected that in what I provided today.
The third bullet point under that same thing, I think you need to clarify, or the supervisors need to clarify, require developers to help meet the increased demand of public recreation created by new development. How that's put in place. If it's in a development, it's required by development, but it's maintained by a homeowners association, chances are the public's not gonna be able to use it. So it either has to be incorporated into the documents of the development, or it's something the supervisors would agree to take and maintain, and that's where that fee in lieu of can maybe offset that, but, that's just something I would caution on, not to get trapped, that you're gonna require somebody to do it, and then they're not gonna make it available for the entire community.
Any other comments?
I think I have one left. On my page 12 or 22 that you sent us, still under that same topic, under strategies of recreation. Well, it's the third bullet point down on my sheet, where it says coordinate with neighboring municipalities and local school districts to enhance and suit comprehensive suite of recreational facilities. I think that's a really good comment, but I think that's somewhere you gotta put in there on how the expenses are shared. So, I'm not sure coordinate goes deep enough to adequately determine the sharing of expenses, because there will be some capital replacement needs, I would imagine.
Okay.
My last comment is, the future land use plan that you attached is from 2015, and it doesn't match our zoning, our current zoning map. So you need to update that, I would believe.
Yes.
Excuse me?
We're gonna talk about that tonight.
Oh, okay. Then I'll be quiet, and someone else can talk.
Any other comments on the recommendations, and then we'll transition into future land use discussion, and the guiding growth. And if you have comments after, feel free to email any specific comments. And this won't be the last time you see these, recommendations either. Since this is really the heart of the plan. Okay, so we will move on to the future land use. So this is tied in with guiding growth, but this is the future land use map that is in your packet from the previous plan. I think, so there's a little bit of a difference between future land use and zoning. Future land use is where you want to see things, and then usually zoning comes after if you need to make tweaks to the zoning. So this was the future land use plan, and then after this, you adopted your zoning to mirror, it might not be an exact replication of the future land use map, but this is really to, in the future, make generalizations of where you want specific types of land use. This is from the 2015 plan, so we would be looking to update this and identify anything that needs to be changed, anything that needs to be expanded, any categories that need to be added to address new types of land use that the township and or borough are experiencing or expecting, to make sure that we're accommodating all that. To provide some context, I did bring the future land use related boards from the community visioning session. So I'll leave these up here, but some of the comments related to future land use was, you know, keeping farming, not being a fan of development. I don't really know who is other than developers. Trails, needing more trails, express interest in additional parkland. There were some specific suggestions on sidewalk connections in the borough. So these are up here for reference. Some people mentioned the old railroad bed being converted to a trail, and then some more specific sidewalk identification, which might not be at the level of a future land use map, but is all helpful information to take into consideration. So that's what input we received from the public from the visioning session through sticky notes. But if I'm going to switch to your presentation so that we have the existing land use up as well, and so anything that, and we can kind of maybe go through guiding growth, identify the inventories, look at existing, oh, I need to share the presentation to the screen. Let's see. So they need to show both. So, you can sit here and I can just advance. So, I'll let Liv take over and then we can circle back to what might need to be changed on the future land use map after we kind of go through all this information.
Cool, okay. So for guiding growth, I started off with just a couple of the different survey responses that we've gotten on why people like Honeybrook, or sorry, what would make Honeybrook a better place to live. Obviously, as we've already discussed, and we're going to talk more about, the survey has not fully been, responded to at this point. Still open, still getting responses. We currently have 175 responses, only 30 of which come from the borough. So just, thinking about that just as a whole when we go through these. But as Sarah mentioned, overdevelopment, people do not want any more development, not a surprise. You know, not destroying the farmland, it's a gorgeous area out here. A more active Main Street, I assume that that was from a borough respondent. Needing a hospital nearby, that is definitely, we're gonna talk about community facilities and services a little bit. And then promoting this rural environment. One that I did not include in here was, do not Delco my Honeybrook. And I found that funny because I am a Delco resident, so I can laugh at that. And I kind of agree, so as a Delco resident. You can go to the next slide. So when we're looking at this, okay, so existing land use, future land use, zoning map. There's 3 different maps. It gets very confusing, and you're just like, why do we need all 3? So for this, oh, sorry, I don't know why it's like, oh, cool, okay. So for this one, we have a breakdown of all the different land use codes, and we have both, hopefully it's a little blurry. But we have our agricultural, our single family, multi-family residential, mobile home park, commercial industrial quarry, landfill utilities, private recreation parkland, and then civic and rights of way. This one has been updated based on the new zoning that you guys amended in both 2019 and 2018, correct? Those are 2 years. Okay, I think, Sarah, you're gonna send these out, the maps.
I'll
after
send
this
out
meeting.
the PowerPoints will
Yeah.
be available too.
Okay, so in this process, we're still completing the inventories because we need to finish a residential build out that we didn't have finished for this meeting tonight. So thinking about the residential build out, after the 2015 plan, you guys both did complete overhaul of your zonings. Township having now 7 districts, borough having 6, correct? To kind of align with basically all of the recommendations in the 2015 plan, and with that existing land use, future land use definitions that you guys laid out, which made it much more simpler to map out. So now when we're looking at this build out, we're kind of trying to understand how much could potentially be residentially yielded within township and borough. So we're talking only about the potential dwelling units in the area. We're not looking at commercial or industrial square footage for this project. You can potentially do that and estimate that. So for this project, we have to net out all the natural resources, floodplain, wetland, woodland, steep slopes, riparian buffer, and then look at your impervious coverage zoning. So we're currently working on that. So Sarah, if you want to go to the next slide, sorry. So we pulled the 2 different summary charts from the previous comp plan that show the possible by gross acreage and then units for both vacant and the underdeveloped lots in Honeybrook that are residential, both the borough and township, sorry. So because we didn't finish this before tonight's meeting, with the continued preservation efforts in the area and with the stronger zoning, we can only assume that there's going to be less, obviously, potential yield from our build out. But you can see here, like on the top one in the borough, when we're looking at single family, 21 potential units were possible in 2015 on those vacant properties. And then underdeveloped, it was 16. So we're going to map that out again for you guys. You can go to the next slide. Are there any questions about that? Sorry. Because that's like a big mapping exercise. That's like a lot. Fair share housing. So because we do that, we can understand that through your zoning, you guys allow for all different variety of residential types. There's a lot of case law that show the fair share doctrine, obviously. So, you know, we have single family, multifamily, mobile home parks, you know, that split level. So I think both of you have the neighborhood residential and that mixed use residential district, so I'm not worried about your fair share housing at all. It was not a problem with the 2015 plan either, so, yeah.
And that's something that could come up if a developer came in, if you didn't allow for those uses and they claimed the fair share law from PA, they might be able to make a case for putting more development or heavier development in areas. So it's good that you have that outlined in your zoning and have designated space for different types of housing to make sure that you have control over where everything goes in the township.
Okay,
Can we get any data on how Honeybrook Township and Borough compare with other municipalities in the county?
In terms of the fair share housing, sure. I will say, compared to some places that we've worked, I would think that Honeybrook, Borough, and Township provide for a wider variety of housing types. There are some municipalities that all they want to provide for is single family. And sometimes they can get away with that because they're not in the path of growth, as designated by the county and regional planning documents. But because you have a major corridor through Honeybrook, I think some of that path of growth does exist in Honeybrook. So, but you already allow for the fair share. But we can pull other places and
Well, I
show.
remember John Feilager talking about, for example, mobile homes,
Mhm.
that we had more than our fair share within the county.
Okay.
But I don't recall him giving any specific numbers about other housing types. So
Okay.
I would be curious if you have that data
Yeah.
available to see that,
Yeah.
how we compare for all kinds of housing.
Okay, we might have that in the community, the demographic, so
Yeah.
we can bring that next time.
yeah. Okay, so as you kind of mentioned earlier, making this an implementable plan is something that's really important. So I do have some questions throughout this whole entire PowerPoint of just ways to kind of come up with some potential new recommendations that maybe weren't thought about in the 2015 plan. So they can be total no's, I'm not offended at all. But they're just some things that have kind of come up in land use and planning since the 2015 plan. So in regards to short-term rentals, we're talking about any residential property that is for rent less than 30 days consecutively. Some municipalities are putting some short-term rental ordinances on their books, specifically for, ordinances so that they specify insurance, maybe advertising. They're even thinking about limits on rental stays, just for that extra level of security. The reason why I brought this up is because the borough does have some Airbnbs. Obviously, with, people renting in the borough, that does stimulate local economy. So, just wanting to understand if that is a recommendation that,
Have you read our current
We
one?
do have that.
that is,
Supervisors just
Oh.
approved the STR
oh,
ordinance.
is that in the, it's not an E-code yet though?
July?
Yeah, I don't know if it is in E-code yet.
I didn't see it.
When did you approve it? July?
July. Can't remember. What's the order?
What's it under? Is it under the zoning or in the, it's probably, it has to be in the zoning.
So,
Yeah. Is it for just short-term rental, like, it doesn't specify any? Does it like call out any like types of like Airbnb, Vrbo, like it doesn't specify?
No.
No?
So then maybe if relevant, that would be a specific one for the borough.
Yeah, so is that something that the borough would find interesting too?
Yeah, we did speak about, I don't remember if it was a couple years ago or what, but I know our police chief at the time said they haven't been a problem or anything, so we just kind of let it be.
And sometimes townships or boroughs do also add these just because although it can stimulate the economy, sometimes there's a problem with taking those rentals or that house out of the housing stock or the rental stock for permanent residents. So sometimes if it becomes a problem, I know it's is becoming a problem in like Lancaster, where there's a lot of tourism. So it's a similar type of tourism around here. So something to consider as well.
Okay, so the board passed it in July then, the township. So it's already on the books, but the borough wouldn't be opposed to it, so. Okay. Great, well, thank you for indulging me. You never know, sometimes people are like anti, obviously. Okay, then we're just gonna quickly turn to zoning maps. I wanted to clarify that these look correct. Obviously, they're smaller, Sarah's gonna send them out, but I just wanted to make sure that they were correct with all of the amendments that were made in 2019 and 2018.
It is on Eco.
It is on,
The
okay.
zoning map, okay.
No, you're saying
Oh,
the short-term rental.
Ordinance
Okay.
211.
211.
Dash 2025.
It was codified.
Okay, perfect.
Well, we spent all the time looking for it. You could have told us it was.
Not my first
She
sheet.
spent all the time looking for it.
There's not public comment, I mean. Okay, perfect. So if you want to just review those and just make sure that everything's right, that would be helpful. We can come back to it. There was one parcel that was an issue about it. Okay, we can go on. TDRs, transferable development rights. Obviously, this was an option that was kind of established by the township, I think initially, to kind of better manage growth in between expansion, development, while protecting that farmland. So there's either a TDR sending area, which are all of those parcels that are key for preservation, versus the areas that are the receiving areas, which are mostly in the borough, I believe, that are key for additional bonus residential dwelling units, and this can be considered for commercial or industrial square footage. So obviously this was a topic that we did discuss in the land preservation plan. Is this a recommendation where the township and borough would like to discuss maybe the necessity, or maybe I should, rephrase. Would the recommendation be to evaluate the necessity of the TDR program?
Through the land preservation process, we got the sense that the township, and in a lot of other places, super comfortable with the sending zones where you're preserving land, but where you're receiving areas that would be receiving higher density, there's oftentimes not. So sending, and those would be the receiving areas. Then when you get to the point of having them go to a receiving area, then that high density, you would be adding density through the transfer of development rights. So when we talked about it with the land preservation committee, they were comfortable with the purchasing of TDRs to retire them. So you're just purchasing development rights and then retiring them. This can be a very compelling tool when it's hard to get people to preserve their land. It can be kind of another leverage point where it feels like they're actually selling their land in some way as opposed to just receiving money to preserve it. But it doesn't seem like that's been a problem in Honeybrook in terms of land preservation.
Susan, you've been on planning for a long time. How many TDRs do you recall being used? And the biggest benefit of the TDRs, if I remember correctly when we went through this 10 years ago, was commercial. Commercial could get a significant
Bonus.
increase
Yeah.
in their impervious coverage. I don't recall many TDRs being used at all. And I think it's because the land preservation has done so well. Even though the incentive is there, it doesn't, with the time I've been on planning, I haven't, maybe 10 TDRs have been used for a benefit, so.
Do they ever happen in any other municipalities? I don't think I've ever heard of one.
There are some TDR programs, whether it's been actually implemented in Chester County. There's one township in Lancaster County, Warwick Township, that they've done a ton with TDRs. That they've, done a lot of preservation, but also a lot of, I think, more a commercial
Yeah.
development with those TDRs.
And is it Rockdale Station, what is there?
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't
Okay, it doesn't, okay.
Yeah.
I knew that had a TDR program around it, correct?
That was a little higher density than.
Okay.
Okay.
Lauren, you have anything to add? I know you were talking with Johnny about that, and that other small development on 322, and there's a lot of conversations going back and forth. Do you have anything to add that?
So, we have the one TDR that has not been, we haven't gotten the documents yet, where the old,
Maple or something?
Maple Estates, and I think that was 6 TDRs. That was requested to get their density, but I asked Christie, probably the longest serving employee here, and she doesn't recall any TDRs being sold before that point. I know I spoke to John Goodall, and he said something that if the borough was interested in density, we could probably do some intermunicipal agreement and let the borough be a receiving area, but that would only be if the borough was interested in more density.
Yeah, where would we put it? We're basically building
Well, it
out.
would probably come with redevelopment, not your current. Yeah, that would probably occur if it was a redevelopment plan.
And it could be, we can leave it as a assess.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe it's just better to leave the recommendation and evaluate. I think that's what it currently is evaluate.
Yeah, can you, discriminate's not the right word, but could you have a TDR program that just benefits commercial and not residential?
If you are
Yes.
only identifying
That in your,
your receiving zones, your
Yeah.
receiving areas in those commercial
like,
districts.
it has to match.
So if your receiving areas
Understand.
are allowed in commercial areas, then it would
Yeah.
only be commercial.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is that challengeable? Can somebody challenge that if they want to use it for residential? If not, that may be something we want to consider.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, then
That's-
maybe,
That's probably the growth of.
Sounds challengeable though.
I know.
We can,
maybe leave it as evaluate and maybe we need to look into that more. Does that make sense? I mean, none of these recommendations, like Sarah said, you're gonna see them all again. They're not finalized tonight, so maybe,
we can
come back to
double,
this.
yeah, we can double
We can
check.
talk more on this, specifically this one. This one's a big topic. I mean, it's not, a 5-minute conversation at all. It's, I know it's been ongoing in the township through other projects that you guys have been working on,
And if you only want it to be for commercial, and after we double check and make sure that you can only have it for commercial and commercial districts, then we might have to reevaluate where your receiving areas are, just to make sure that they're consistent with only the commercial districts.
I mean, that's just a comment that I put out there.
Mhm.
No one else thinks that's a good idea, but don't waste any time.
Sounds like a good idea, but it also sounds like it may be a challengeable.
Well, we'll look into that, and for right now, we'll just edit the recommendations for right now, just to say evaluate the program, and we'll come back to it. Okay, this I had a question on. There was an official map in the 2015 plan, in the appendices. It said it was adopted in 2009. Can anybody speak to this? Was this adopted by the township, by the borough? It looks like by the inset, that the only amenities or potential future amenities are in the borough. So is this
The borough's here.
Yeah.
This is.
Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. Or is in the southern portion of the township. So, is this correct? Is this,
The official map, I thought the official map went along with the zoning changes that were
Okay.
done in,
I don't know.
you don't think so?
it didn't?
Because I don't understand this official map.
Okay.
That was a long time
Because
ago.
I couldn't find, there was no text with it, so I was very confused about it.
I was confused why it's only one little section.
Yeah, I would think
That
that it would
makes
be
no
more too, especially
Because if
considering,
you want to preserve the land's all where there's no official map.
yeah, and, well, I'm surprised that there's no potential easements on here.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's very,
It's just a school site
yeah, it's potential
And-
park.
park.
Wasn't that the Rockland Station overlay?
No, that's what I was thinking, but when you look at the legend,
It
I can't
doesn't,
see that.
Yeah, it's.
oh,
for
I
some
can see
reason
the
on
legend, that's it.
it's, here, I can, so there's like a green dot, there's green dots, and it's future trails. And then, future roads is the purple. And then
What's the green?
the green hatch is future park,
Or
open
open
space,
That-
or
that
village
sounds like
parcels.
You might be right.
Okay,
Because
So-
they were talking about parks and schools in that end of the township.
And that would be about the right timing.
okay.
And then
So-
that disappeared.
So that disappeared. Yeah,
That was,
exactly.
that overlay was removed.
Yeah, with the
completely.
last zoning.
Right. Well, the
Okay.
last plan too.
Yeah, okay. So this is no longer valid, is that what we think?
That's
Well, I mean, if you're gonna have an official map, it should be the entire township. of
It should
What
be.
land you want to preserve, where you think you're gonna have
Exactly.
trail easements and all that kind of stuff.
And-
So
and-
that makes no sense, and I've never understood why that was that way.
Yes, and official maps now are working off of land preservation maps, you know, what parcels have been identified in the land preservation plan. So, should or not, recommendation be to review and adopt a new official map that shows the whole
I
entire
mean, wouldn't it
township?
make sense?
Yeah, right, okay. Does the borough wish to be included?
In the borough, the official map could be.
I know, it could be
More
future,
sidewalk.
I know, yeah, it's like
extensions
future
or-
amenities, it's, you know, sidewalks, trails,
Yeah.
connecting in and out, it's kind of especially considering you are in the middle, it's kind of nice to
Yeah.
be involved in the planning. Okay. Cool. Great, okay. Community facilities and services, there's a lot to go through. I know we don't have a ton of time, so I'm gonna try and go through these quick and just, ask generic questions.
Is everyone okay if we just keep going and don't run over time, and
Oh,
run
I'm
over
sorry.
time and keep going?
I'm fine with it.
Oh, is it supposed to go to late? I thought this went to 8:30, I'm so sorry.
Agenda says 8.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I just keep going.
Are you sure? I can stop. I don't
No,
know.
no, no.
Okay, stakeholder interviews are supposed to start, next week. Beth will start conducting them. So some of these questions I know are definitely directed more towards, stakeholders, but I just wanted to get your initial feedback on some, of these questions. So Sarah, I'm just gonna have you like run through them like fairly quick, so I might just keep saying, you know, next. So for municipal, staff, obviously, township has full-time staff, borough has part-time, but both have a third-party, you know, consultant for solicitor, engineer, code enforcement, and consultants. Some of them refer to them differently. Is there a need for, you know, expansion of personnel or space? I know in the last plan, there was a recommendation for expansion for the township for this space. So I feel the need that that will be just removed as a recommendation, as we're currently sitting here today. But from the borough's point of view, is
Yeah,
there-
so also we have a public works director, he's
Yeah.
part-time, but we have started talking about expanding our police station.
Okay, and I did, okay, wait, I didn't write that one down.
Actually, just came up in the past month.
The building or the
Building.
force itself, okay. Okay, Sorry, you can go to the next one. Public Works, Beth will start to talk with them again. This one I wanted to talk about, there's a lot on snow in the inventory that we currently have on community facilities. We really haven't seen much snow in the last couple of years, except for oddly this week, which is very timely. Do we want to talk about inventorying any flood-prone areas, as we do have some extreme weather events that have started to happen? Is that something that the task force wants to include in this plan at all? Maybe some streets that you see.
Yeah, that's probably something that you would have a conversation
With them?
with the manager.
Okay,
With,
yeah,
with Warren.
okay,
Yeah, our fire chief also.
okay,
They would know better.
okay. And also that's like helpful of who we should ask for all these questions as well. You can go to the next slide, Sarah. Okay, and police, we said expansion of new building for the borough. We'll talk to police from township. You can go to the next one, Sarah.
Addition or new space, you guys looking? Guesstimate.
We don't know.
Just
We're
don't
gonna
guess.
start design. Something's in the works.
Cool. Fire, the last plan included expansion for Honeybrook Fire Company. And also I think it was so that EMS could be on the same site as them. I know they're still located at 322 and 10. So we'll speak with them to see if they want to be.
They are putting an additional.
They
so
are,
the
okay.
chief can,
Okay.
it's actually in process as we speak.
Okay. And is that going to include EMS or no? Do you know? I can ask.
I don't think that includes the EMS, the EMS side.
Okay. Perfect.
They're looking at a possible remote site too,
And then for ambulance, like I said, but we'll talk with them, but it looks like they'll still be separate then. Okay, the borough, I wanted to clarify, do you guys have an Act 537 plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, sorry. The sewer authority does, which is joint
Yes.
borough.
Yeah.
The borough hasn't been required to do one in
Yeah.
decades
Yeah.
because we're
So, but
going
it's through
out.
the sewer authority?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
It's
NCCMA.
the township's plan.
Oh,
Correct.
it
It's
is,
the
gotcha.
township's plan, and since the authority's facilities are in the
Gotcha.
township, they're covered.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. And then public water, I didn't have any questions here unless you guys wanted to add anything about your public water. You can go to the next one, Sarah. Again, flooding, so I'll talk to Warren and talk to fire about that.
Our Public Works Director also saying.
Public Works, okay.
For the borough. I know in front of the fire station, there's a permanent flooding if we get really bad rains.
Okay, that's good. We don't need to talk, we'll just talk about this later. Solid waste, you guys both have private haulers, that's both in your zoning, new, is it new for the township? One of them was new, I can't remember which one. Oh, no, new for the borough. School district, 3 elementary schools, middle school, high school, we'll speak with them. I don't know if they have any additional needs, but we'll. Oh, what? Awesome. That's actually
You
helpful.
don't have that item.
No, call the main office.
Okay.
They'll give you a scoop.
Okay.
Enrollment's declining, I'll tell you
Okay.
that.
So you don't have the risk of needing a new,
Probably have capacity for 1,000, 1,300 more students.
Okay.
Across all buildings, not, you know,
Oh,
across
okay,
district.
no, just in. And then Honeybrook Library, it's now in township, so. I don't think we have any questions about that either. I just wanted to roll through that so you guys knew what all the, you'll see all of them in the inventory, but I just wanted to overview them really quick. Okay. Switching to the borough's revitalization plan really quick. That was prepared in 2003. We included it again as part of the recommendations. There's kind of these 4 key areas: economic development, circulation, housing, public safety, and then that public infrastructure. And I made this slide before I received, I guess it was from you, or Beth maybe sent it to me, I don't know, who filled it out, of the Township of Borough, what had been achieved. So I tried to add that into the recommendations, but please let me know if I did not accurately portray that. So we can keep going. Sorry, I don't mean to be rushing through, but I just want to respect your time. Okay, so when we're thinking about these recommendations, feel free to go home and scribble them up and cross any of them out. But we've broken them up into future land use, fair share housing, and then the revitalization plan we left separately. But for the sake of this plan, we kind of broke it out into 4 different strategy categories of circulation of trails, sewer and water, downtown community, and then public safety. So future land use obviously has the most amount of goals, thinking about that mix of growth, development, while enhancing the community character with that preservation. And then we also have that consideration for potential need for new dwelling or that redevelopment, and making sure that it's still in that neighborhood character that we currently see, right, in the area. And that's maybe a little bit more catered toward the borough a little bit. And then one specifically catered towards land preservation opportunities. For fair share housing, ours is just to allow for a diverse, sustainable, safe housing opportunity for all residents in the area. So, you know, for all people of all different ages, income levels, abilities to achieve any housing in the area. And then again, with the revitalization plan, to achieve all of the strategies previously on the slide. So I want to give Sarah time because I know she wanted to talk about future land use, so I don't want to, you know, go over them too much. But if you guys had any comments on future, you know, guiding growth on these recommendations initially, I know she sent them out last week. You know, if you have any comments, please let me know.
And sticking with kind of the theme where we present things at one meeting and then it carries over into the next, we can have on the agenda to do a more in-depth review once you have time to review in light of the inventories, all the recommendations, and then we can review them at the next meeting, have discussions, talk about what needs to be removed, added, kept. And then same with the future land use map. That's really next 10, 20 years, what, where do you think we need to make tweaks to that map? Again, it's not a one-for-one with zoning or existing land use. It's thinking, okay, what are some things that might be coming down the pike that we see more development coming? Where should we try to accommodate that if we need to accommodate that? Some municipalities that we've worked with, they look at their previous future land use map, it still works for where they see the township going. So they kind of keep it pretty much the same. So if there's not any drastic changes, we can do the same, but we want to make sure that we're planning for the future too, if there's anything that might be coming down the pipe.
I did just want to add, like, for clarification on the goals and strategies for guiding growth. We did it a little bit differently than you've previously seen for the other recommendations, and we left in the leading parties or the parties that would assist with each goal, if it was from the 2015 plan, as well as short-term, long-term, or ongoing, the time frame that was in that implementation matrix. Those are all written in black, and then any of the ones that are written in green, these are all new recommendations that were not previously in the 2015 plan. So those don't have a time frame or a party currently. So just so you know, for clarification, that's why they're kind of written differently.
I do think though, the future land use should start with our current zoning.
Okay.
And that should be our starting point, because that's consistent as a result of this, the last go-around several years ago.
Right,
It was changed because of, you know, what, at that time. So that should be our starting point, and then we can go from there. Because if we're going to change that, the supervisor is going to have a zoning change. They're gonna have to- And, I mean, it's just my opinion. I think we should start with what we currently have before.
I agree. Us too.
so we can, follow up, and we'll just send you, so you have, I'm sure you already have your zoning maps, but we'll send that with you so you can kind of look and compare the future land use map from the last with the current zoning, so you can kind of see that progression, and then from there, we can develop a new future land use map if things need to be shifted and changed. So we can add that to the discussion for the next meeting. Were there any questions of what we covered before we talk about the survey?
I think I was right, because this map was very different from what we have now.
For the zoning.
Then the districts are, the zoning districts are different.
Yeah, and sometimes oftentimes the future land use map is a little bit more general with their language descriptions. Sometimes you see on future land use maps, there's only 4 different distinctions. So it depends on how close, we don't want to just reproduce the zoning map, but if there's any districts that need to be changed, we can add that to the future land use map. So I think it's a good point to start from there, since there has been a lot of change with the zoning, but sometimes it ends up being a little bit more general on the future land use map. Okay, so I will follow up with the zoning map along with the other items. So the one thing we want to discuss, we're working on developing a postcard to promote the survey. And that will be mailed out probably within a week or two. And it will go to every household in the Honeybrook zip code. So we're hoping that this will boost the survey responses and make sure that everybody has the opportunity. Like I mentioned earlier, there will be paper copies made available, and we'll make sure we have both made available at the township and the borough. We can see if we can provide paper copies at the library as well. We just need to decide when, 'cause we have to tell people when to get a survey done, otherwise, you know, there needs to be an endpoint so people feel that sense of urgency to do the survey. So if the mailing goes out in the next week or two, when should we make the deadline for the survey responses?
When's our January meeting?
Our next meeting isn't until February 4th, beginning of February.
Why don't you pick a date in January to have it back so we can hopefully get the results for February's meeting?
Right.
Yeah. We can say, you know, let me see when so January 31st would be a Saturday, and then our next meeting would be that Wednesday. So we could say the 31st. We would have most of the responses from the online survey can be generated immediately, and then we can block off some time to input the paper copies.
Would that give you enough time,
I was
the
gonna
31st?
say, yeah.
Would that give you guys enough time?
It would give us enough time to at least get the I mean, we can say the 24th as well, and then we have time to pick up the surveys. I want to make sure we give,
Is it a problem? I would rather give the people a 30-day window to fill it out, so can we just push back, would it be a problem to push back till March to review?
we could review the surveys at the
Yeah,
March
if-
meeting.
If them cars don't go out for another 2 weeks, then you got Christmas. And then by the
Give
time
all of
somebody say,
January.
picks it up the first or second week, and then they get around to doing it and then dropping it off, and I don't want people to be upset that we didn't give them enough time, and just give them a whole month to try to get it done.
So aim for end of January 31st, and then we can always give you a light overview of the survey at the February meeting, but then a full detail review at the March meeting. I think there's one in March.
Have you guys seen any returns of paper surveys, or even the township? I don't know, Warren, if you would know that. If you've got any paper copies of the surveys?
We have an envelope we can give you.
Okay, let's take that. Borough, do you have?
I'll check, but
Okay.
I'm only open 3 days a week.
Gotcha.
Sarah, did you say that the borough and the township are really two different paper surveys?
Yeah, there were slightly different questions based on whether you answered for the township or the borough.
But if you do it electronically, when you make it past the first question, is that when it divides it out to the borough and, oh, okay. So it's the same QR code, but after the first question, it divides between the township and the borough?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There are a lot of overlapping questions. It's only for a few, but we didn't want to bombard. We don't want to confuse residents if they're answering questions that weren't particularly pertinent to them, one way or the other.
So if we put the forms out at the library or any other public place, it's going to be confusing because they're going to know, should I take a borough survey or a township survey?
You might think they're the same.
No, they're the same, aren't
I
they?
mean, you can only do so much, that people gotta be accountable for,
Which one?
if you got a pile that says borough, and you got a pile that says township, and if you live in a township, you probably should take the township one. I mean, I don't wanna be ignorant, but there's gotta be some type of
So put
accountability
some
on the people
postcards at the
filling out
library
forms.
instead, so then
We
they
can do
can,
that.
instead of the survey, the postcards, so, hey, and put on there, it's essential, we need your input, like you have on the survey.
Probably still want
Oh, so they would want the copies, okay. All right, never mind.
Erin couldn't be here this evening, but she did send me a couple comments that I told her I would share. She doesn't agree with the Act 115 funds being used for maintenance
Okay.
of lands acquired. She believes that those monies should be used for preservation, and the maintenance and the renovation should be funded through the general fund.
Okay.
And then the other paragraph where it says, consider the creation of the Honeybrook Parks and Trail Committee. She feels we already have a Park and Rec Committee that it could be incorporated into that committee.
Okay, so having like a joint, or does the borough has a park?
We
and
do,
rec?
yes.
Would there be value in having like a quarterly meeting where they overlap for coordination?
I mean, I'm sure there could, both parties would agree with it, but I mean, we got one park, we just put pickleball courts in.
Okay, so you're kind of focused.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can evaluate removing that, or if that needs to be reworded in any way. Any other comments, outstanding items from the task force? And then we'll turn it over to public comment, if there's anything else.
Mrs. Perez, I cut you off for 3 minutes, so.
All right, I'll finish real quick. All right,
Now, it said you had an October 9th meeting, but I didn't see an agenda or notes for that on the website.
Yes, that was my failure. I did not send it to our marketing department, so it will be uploaded shortly.
Okay, because I thought I was just losing it. I'm like, did they have the meeting?
No,
Did
we
they
did
not?
have the meeting.
And then, so where do we lay on Struble Park? I know I keep coming back to that, but I just found out about it, so it's bothering me. How will I know if you're going for that or not, if you're gonna implement that? Because I would fight against it, and me, myself, and get residents against it, because I think it's a perfect, just the way it is.
I mean, the recommendation that we read, so the recommendation in here was for coordinate with Fish and Boat to expand day use recreational facilities.
Right, they want to put a volleyball court, horseshoes, do a boat rental there, turning it into French Creek. We already have French Creek. And this is just so serene. I mean, when I go there, it's just so nice to not have barbecues and, you know, I don't mind benches along the trail and you have people, you know, shooting and hunting and like, why are you gonna put both of them there at the same time?
I think that's a good point with what you're saying, because that's your position, right? But I think
Right.
it's also a good point of, and I know you're a big proponent of it, getting residents' input.
Oh,
So
no,
if you have
I
a ton
will.
of residents that want that.
That I will, right, and they
Right.
might want it and I may be outvoted
But
and
I
then
don't think
I'd
that's
have
the
to
case.
accept that.
I mean, stay tuned, but I don't think that, personally, I don't think it's gonna go that way, but.
Right. It just scared me when I saw it, and I saw it in the survey, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. So,
Well,
I
and
guess
so
that's,
we're still in the middle of the process, so once the
Right.
survey comes out, we'll have, this was a recommendation from the last plan, so that must have been something that came out of this survey from that plan.
yeah, I'm sure it was.
But,
I don't mind a trail
Things might be
connection, that
different
sounds
now.
great, and
yeah, so
put more
once-
people to get shot too, so I'm not sure. And the other thing, I did want to agree with that. I don't know exactly what Act 115 is in the land preservation funds and about using, what does it mean by that? 25% of land preservation funds being able to be used for what? Maintaining open land and parks?
Yeah, so, PA, and we would have to make it consistent with the language. That was a previous recommendation, from the last comprehensive plan. So, the Act 115, that's the open space fund, that's the PA state act that allows for townships to have an open space fund. Back, I think in 2013, they amended that act to allow, there were a lot of municipalities that had open space funds. They had protected a lot of land, but what they needed, they had funds left over, but no more land to feasibly protect. So they needed the opportunity to shift to stewardship or trail or park enhancements, basically maintaining the properties that they were able to preserve.
So if we have money left over in land preservation, you want to use it for park and recreation, in a sense?
That's what how the recommendation reads as. We address this in the land preservation plan.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to a couple of their meetings.
So we can make sure that it's consistent with the recommendation from that plan, because there is a lot of,
But doesn't all that money come from us in the
Yes.
earned income tax?
yes.
So wouldn't we have to say that that's okay as residents?
Well, it was a PA act that allows that to be used
Without our
in
say.
different ways, but with the comprehensive plan, we can decide that that's not, something that you want to pursue at this time.
But this will all be drafted and public comment and all that, right? Okay.
Right.
All right, I think I'm good for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, anyone else? Valerie?
Yeah, Valerie Schultz. I've actually read that act, and from what I could tell, the wording that was in there said that you could use those open space funds if the land was acquired under the land preservation program. So it's not wouldn't apply in our case to Humboldt Park. So just to make that clear. I have gotten some feedback from residents, and I don't know if you guys have heard this or not yet. Maybe somebody mentioned it earlier. Sorry, I was late. But I have been told that some of the questions where you give you're told to pick so many options. If they don't pick that many options, then they can't submit the survey.
Yeah.
And then people have just been giving up and not completing the survey. So if there's any way that that can be fixed, that would be great. That might improve
Yeah.
response rate.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
What was that?
If there's some questions on there that tell you to choose
Anyone else on the
5
side?
things that you.
Right, I started.
And if you don't choose 5, it won't
No.
let you submit.
This side?
No.
Okay.
So it won't count if you do it either.
Okay, so, our next task force meeting is February 4th. We'll be talking about, the new topic that we'll be talking about is multimodal transportation. We'll look at all things transportation, but we'll also revisit what was presented on guiding growth. You'll have an opportunity to respond to the recommendations, and we can fine tune the future land use map at that meeting.
And Sarah, will they put it in red when the due date is, or like, will they make it stand out, kind of?
On the postcard?
Yeah.
We can make sure
Okay.
that it jumps out.
What's the due date gonna be again, the 31st?
Yeah, the 31st of January.
People will just kind of.
All right.
Design and forget about it. I mean, that's my standard
Yeah,
practice.
people do that anyway.
Yeah, I know, but.
Does the committee have anything before we adjourn? Good.
I started doing 3, and I'm like, oh, shoot, this thing could be
So,
kind of paper.
Our meeting is now adjourned. I'm sorry, did you? Okay. All right.
Yeah.